The internet is a great place. Just ask anyone who spends hours on it every day. It's full of endless entertainment, information, online shopping, and more. Without it, we'd probably be a lot more bored. But if you use the internet a lot, chances are you've probably heard scary stories about hackers, viruses, and malware. While you might think these are just made up for attention, they're actually very real. If you've ever seen a pop-up ad, then you've experienced malware firsthand. You can also thank malware for any strange things that happen on your phone or computer. And that's why it's important to learn about some of the most harmful computer programs ever created. Here are 5 of the worst computer viruses and worms ever created, and how they changed the world. MyDoom was one of the fastest spreading viruses in history, created by an unknown author and first appearing in January of 2004. This virus mainly targeted Windows PCs. If you used a Windows PC, you were likely to receive an email with the subject line, "I love you," which was meant to trick the recipient into thinking it was a love letter from someone they knew. And if you clicked on the attached file, you would activate the virus and all your personal information would be sent to the creator of the virus. But MyDoom didn't stop there. It could also spread by itself. Once inside your device, it would pull random numbers and letters to create an address. Then, it would repeat the process. The only difference was the subject line would change to reflect where it was being sent. So if the virus went to the email address abc123@hotmail.com, the subject line would say abc123@hotmail.com. This allowed the virus to quickly go viral, because it could send hundreds of copies of itself within minutes. And since it was a DOS attack, MyDoom would also slow down computers so much that users had no choice but to turn them off and on again. This virus spread so quickly that it caused problems on a global scale. It slowed down global internet traffic by an estimated 10%, costing corporations an estimated $10 billion in losses. Even though the damages were huge, not much was done to find the person behind the virus. After all, they could be anyone. With billions of emails going back and forth every second, tracking down a virus's origin is extremely hard. Although the MyDoom virus is no longer around, its legacy lives on. It showed people just how fast a virus could spread and inspired future virus creators. And speaking of virus creators, one man took the idea of spreading viruses to another level. Meet the mastermind behind the Alovo virus. The year is 2000 and you're checking your email. You see a message from a loved one and click on the attachment. But instead of a nice picture or funny video, you get a virus that replaces files, steals your personal information, and sends copies of itself to everyone in your contact list. Welcome to the world of Iloveo, one of the most widespread viruses in history. Iloveo was the creation of one Filipino man, Albert Gonzalez. His goal wasn't to harm anyone, just to make money. He wrote the virus in the hopes that he could blackmail companies affected by it. But as it turned out, he didn't have to. Millions of people worldwide fell prey to the virus, and Gonzalez ended up making more than $10 million from all the damage it caused. You might be wondering how he did it. Well, all it took was a simple love letter. That's what the virus was called before it became a virus. It was written in Visual Basic script and disguised itself as a text document. Once opened, however, it would delete certain files and replace others with copies of the virus. Then it would send copies of itself to everyone in your address book. The reason it spread so fast is because of the way people named their files. Since people often name important files after family members, friends, and so on, it was easy for Iloveo to go unnoticed. Most people just assumed the file was a harmless prank by a loved one. Unfortunately, once the virus started spreading, there was no stopping it. With such a clever disguise, Iloveo spread like wildfire. At its peak, the virus was responsible for 60% of all spam emails. This caused an estimated $15 billion in damages and spread to over 100 countries. As you can imagine, the FBI wanted to catch whoever did this. They tracked Gonzalez to the Philippines and asked the Philippine government to arrest him. However, the Philippine government refused. They said Gonzalez hadn't broken any Philippine laws and even gave him a presidential pardon. So far, no one knows where he is or what happened to him. But his virus still serves as a reminder to always be careful when opening attachments from unknown senders. Sometimes a virus isn't created by a person, but rather emerges on its own. Take the Confica worm, for example. This worm was first identified in 2008 and quickly spread across the globe. One expert claimed that the worm was able to infect 15,000 new PCs every second. It even managed to avoid detection from some of the best antivirus programs in the world. But what made Confica truly unique was how difficult it was to track down. Unlike other worms, Confica didn't reveal itself right away. It would quietly link infected devices together in a massive underground network. This network would allow commanders to control multiple devices and launch massive attacks without anyone knowing about it. Even though Confica was mostly used for espionage, it still caused major problems for businesses and governments. At its peak, it was believed that Confica controlled over 10 million devices. This included PCs, servers, and routers. Some experts believe the number was closer to 50 million. Most of us don't need to worry about worms like Confica. we're more likely to come across smaller worms designed to steal information and money. But that doesn't mean we should let our guard down. Worms like Conficker show that even the most secure networks aren't safe from malware. That's why it's important to stay vigilant and take precautions to protect yourself against malware. After all, you never know when a worm could strike. Some viruses are more dangerous than others. For example, the Melissa program from 1999 could replicate itself by exploiting Microsoft Word documents. If you opened an infected document, Melissa would replace your normal documents with copies of itself and then send copies to everyone in your contact list. This caused chaos in the workplace, as employees found their computer files being replaced without warning. It was especially bad for large companies like NASA and the New York Stock Exchange, who lost an estimated $50 million due to Melissa. Despite causing so much damage, Melissa was relatively simple. It only took 100 kilobytes of space and was written by only one person, David L. Smith. Smith was a low-level employee at an insurance firm, and he wrote the virus as a joke. He hoped it would cause some minor chaos, but he never imagined it would cost millions. He was arrested and charged with creating a destructive computer program. Smith tried to argue that it was just a prank, but the judge didn't buy it. He sentenced Smith to 10 years in prison, but he was released early after serving only 4 these days. Viruses like Melissa are nothing compared to the malware used by modern hackers. But that doesn't mean we should let our guard down. Viruses like Melissa show that malware can affect anyone. That's why it's important to take precautions to protect yourself against malware. If you thought Melissa was bad, then you haven't met Stuxnet. This computer worm is considered the most dangerous computer weapon in history. Created by the US and Israeli governments, it was used to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. The worm infected Iranian computers and caused them to malfunction. This led to the destruction of thousands of centrifuges and set Iran's nuclear program back by several years. What makes Stuxnet so unique is that it targeted real-world machines. Most malware affects computers and other electronic devices, but Stuxnet was specifically designed to target industrial systems. This is why it's so dangerous. If it fell into the wrong hands, it could be used to cause physical damage. Before Stuxnet, most malware was used for cybercrime or espionage, but this worm changed everything. It proved that digital code could be used to influence real-world machines. That's why it's so important. It changed the way we think about cybersecurity and showed us that we need to be prepared for anything. When Stuxnet was first discovered, many experts were shocked by its sophistication. It was unlike anything they had seen before. This worm was developed over a period of several years and involved some of the brightest minds in the world. The fact that it was successful shows just how serious of a threat malware can be. It's important to remember that malware can affect anyone, regardless of how careful you are. That's why it's important to take precautions to protect yourself and your devices. Now watch Worst Tech Fails of All Time, or check out How Much Do You Really Know About the Internet. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and share the video.